You will note soon enough that I never use the word Gestalt without the word therapy. It's had a curious development. We began something called Gestalt therapy, and somewhere on one of the coasts of this continent, the word therapy was dropped, and something known as Gestalt emerged. They probably correctly dropped the word therapy. Gestalt therapy is only a psychotherapy, a rather trivial discipline. I do not say irrelevant, but I do say trivial, like all psychotherapy. We answer no important questions. That's not our work. Maybe the work of a philosopher, or, if you're so inclined, a religious person. That great man and good man, Sigmund Freud, said, if a patient asks me, what is life about? I have only one answer. You are crazy. Now, he was not an unkind man, so I had to try to figure out what he meant. What he meant is that any patient who asks that of a psychoanalyst or a psychotherapist must be so disoriented they're insane. So do not expect any profound answers. We are at best, when successful, emotional plumbers. And when you're very successful, you make more than plumbers. But our task is to enable a person, later called a patient, or if you're a social worker, a client. Since I'm neither a psychiatrist, psychologist, or social worker, I shall probably have to call mine customers.
Isadore, you were talking about Gestalt therapy being, bracketing it as being like a plumber, and that it doesn't have any of the answers to large questions in life.
I said important.
Important questions.
Given my size, I rarely use the word large.
Well, I want to stay with the word large. I myself, in working with patients, find that I'm going through a shift in not wanting to be as much so enormously important to my patients, but instead perhaps just very important. And as part of that shift, I, in the last 5 or 6 years, had been working with a small, select number of patients physically, entering some scenes with them and basically playing a part a role where I was in physical contact with them. And I am...
What is this, a confession?
No. I'm leading up to a question. I've recently decided to pull back from doing that, and part of my pulling back is of not being comfortable in having become so enormously important to the couple people that I've done this with. As a member of this group, I was...
Are your patients very attractive?
There are some that are attractive.
I can understand that.
As a member of this group, when we as a group had a workshop with Al Pesso, he said that one of the reasons that he didn't enter into doing some of the physical role-playing with the patients, but rather had other members of the group do it, is that he did not want to become so enormously important. And so my question to you is, in terms of your practicing and being a Gestalt therapist, has that ever been an issue for you? And do you have some views on your level of importance as you become to a patient?
The task of a psychotherapist, even a Gestalt therapist, is to make themselves dispensable. That is not saved for the last 3 sessions. I would question what was the word you used? Terribly important or very important?
Enormously important.
Enormously.
Not a large word.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Well, such grand terms, or minimizing ones, in this case grand, are evidence for a Gestalt therapist of possible projecting or retroflecting. Now I'm trying to answer your question. Of course, since they're paying you this money, you're going to be important to them. I do not play roles, nor do I have my patients play roles. That is a technique derived from Moreno, which often seems to accompany something called Gestalt, not Gestalt therapy, which, at least in Moreno, is part of a consistent method. Okay? So, I reject role playing as being inconsistent with Gestalt therapy, which attends to contact making and withdrawal. Now, I suppose occasionally something like psychodrama might enable a person to experience that they may be unawares projecting. I can assure you that rarely, if ever, will it dissolve the projection, because mere role-playing rarely gets to what is actually being projected. The content of the apparent projection is rarely the actual unaware projection. Would you like an example?
Sure.
Let's say a patient says, "You hate me." You have listened to how they said that, and you are also aware that you don't hate them, but that's not what makes it a projection. Not all mistakes are projections. But you have reason to think this is a possible, unaware projection, which is one of the 4 losses of ego function. So, I might say, what have I said or done that enables you to tell me, not share with me? No, I'm not just digging you. I want keeping the contact-making language, telling my ear that I hate you. And almost always, they will have seen something, heard something, and they will tell you. Or, not always easily, but sometimes with difficulty. Well, the other day when I said so and so and so and so, you didn't say anything. I will then remember it, and I will say, I'm presenting myself as the perfect therapist, which is always possible to do in such situations, because I can invent the best answers here. This happens once a year in actual practice. So I will say, yes, I remember that. Now will you remember that again? Remember. And with sometimes easily, sometimes difficulty. And then I might say, what do you remember experiencing at that time? Oh, nothing. What was nothing like? I choosing to hear the word nothing as resistance. Well, yes, in fact, I don't know, I felt sad. That's interesting. Do you remember what you thought? Well, of course I'm listening to how this patient is telling me this now. Very sad. And I thought, I like you. That is said with tears or affect, other affect or anxiety, that the original statement, you hate me, did not include. The actual projection here is, I like you. If you start with the, you hate me, now I hate you, you will get drama, but not the projection. So, the problem, the anxiety in this example that I gave, which is being contained by the projecting, is now I, the patient, am made anxious by liking this person and others. That's where the therapy would concentrate. What is anxious making about liking or loving or what? Not what it started with hating. You will get beautiful scenes, as have been seen in certain so-called films or movies of Gestaltists who perform on stage. become your hate. If it isn't your mother, it's your hate or a rug, I don't know. But until, with this not unimportant loss of ego function, until you, the therapist, are confident that you and the patient have contacted the actual projection, you cannot make a therapeutic advance. You can make a ventilating advance, you can get marvelous abreaction, but you will make no step in your psychotherapy. And, oh, it's wonderful, I get back to the first question. You will have made yourself too important to the patient if you don't do that.
How will you make yourself too important to the patient by making a mistake and making something dramatic?
Because they will continue to project. And until they're not only aware of what they're projecting, but and have dissolved the projection and made it again their self, you will feel, excuse me, why am I saying excuse me? I could use some water. I said water like a New Yorker at last. Finally have left Indiana. Yeah. You see, you will be the ground for projections. And that's what makes you too important.
You said before you could see in Marty's use of the word enormous, possible projecting and also retrofitting.
I didn't know which. I might have said to Marty, tell me that again, Marty. And this time, drop the word enormous. Well, quite rightly, Marty is not going to do it. But it's a little late. But if immediately upon hearing that, if I had chosen to follow up, I wanted to mention it. I had said that I had reason to consider that there's something being held back here, or which would be retroflecting, or something being projected, in this case, on the patient. And how that is done is by the introduction of words that do not add to the meaning or may take away the meaning. I'll give you another example. Words like really, very. Now, I do not mean always. You have to have reason to do it. But if you
include always in that?
what?
You're going to include always on your list?
Absolutely. That is how the patient, deliberately at one time, enable themselves to say something without the anxious making effort. Christopher Isherwood once told me, Isadore, if anybody says, I really love you, watch out. What is this really? Ever since I've watched out. And I realized even though at that time I knew nothing about Gestalt therapy because it didn't exist, I then use that later. I find that good writers often have taught me more than bad psychologists, or even good ones. Now, have I answered your question?
Yes.
See, now, I listen, and I'm convinced. You said yes. If you had said, yeah, or uh-huh, or something like that, I would have repeated, have I answered your question? Because the absence of a straightforward yes, which is half the function of the ego in Gestalt therapy, would suggest the possibility of your retroflecting.
How about, you sure did answer my question.
In 33 years of practice, I have as yet to hear that. But I might say, too much? More than you wanted?
What is it about you, Isadore, that brings out in me such powerful, this is the second time I'm saying this to you, such a powerful need of our want to protect you?
You... I couldn't tell who wanted the
I
protection.
want to. Oh, you mean, is that what it is?
No.
There have been incidents this morning, but even this one just happened. I became once again aware, very strongly, how I want to reach out and say, no, you shouldn't have to know everything. It's okay if somebody else helps and that kind of thing. It's like, it's okay, you know, like you carry this massive everything on your shoulders, and everything should be just correct and perfect. And that's one part of it. The other part is it just brings out very caring, warm, protective kind of feelings inside of me towards you. Now, yes, maybe I want protection from you. That's not what I'm most aware of.
Well, perhaps you experience me as needing it. If you were a patient, which you're not, I might tell you, can you ignore that? I assure you, in this situation, I do not need your protection. I would suspect one reason is, in a good way, you'd like to mother me. Certainly we all can use some of
In a
that.
good way only. It isn't a good enough way.
And unless you're need to, would you want to go into that now? Or you think it's useful to?
I imagine that almost anything I'll do it will be useful to me. But
Do you want to, or don't you?
yes, I want to.
Did you hear the anxiety then? Before, it was absent.
Or experience the anxiety also. Right now, my heart is telling me that. I've never had a heart attack though.
What?
Even though I haven't had a heart attack.
Now, you see, I would hear your laugh. I'm trying to teach now, too. Oh, yes. That'll relieve the anxiety somewhat. Because that's how you exhale. And
I was moved a little further away from you.
You think I should have noticed that?
No?
Oh.
Just want you to actually know that I was aware of that.
I'm stalling.
I thought you were protecting me. Let her breathe for a while.
Well, you see what I've noticed, the reason that you say Mila or Mila?
Mila.
Mila.
Short for Ludmila.
For what?
For Ludmila.
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 Ludmila. Is that you start a sentence before I finish what I had to say. It's as if you listen and formulate a reply at the same time. Sometimes it's called thinking. Now, you see how I know that is I have listened to when you start your sentence, and I still may have one more word to go. Exhale. Yeah. Now, with a patient, I might not say that. What? Exhale, inhale. I never say inhale. But I might say, oh, Mila, put both feet on the ground. And if she did that, she would spontaneously exhale. And then I'd have reason to think, now she's less anxious. So, say what you're thinking.
Right now what I'm thinking is, I'm trying to remember how many times I do that with her, finishing, speaking before he finishes sentences.
How many times?
Oh, how frequently?
Do you do it?
Mm-hmm.
You haven't said yes that you do it with me. Did you know that?
I was not aware of it until you told me.
Yes, I think so. And when you tell yourself something, I think sometimes you get confused and experience that you've said it already. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Now again, you're talking to yourself. I'm not insisting that you speak. Now, to get back with what we started, do you do this because you are protecting me?
Right now? No way.
Are you aware that you give yourself time by making statements like, right now, you knew very well what I meant.
No, I don't think I knew very well what you know.
I'm wrong. Okay.
I'm still on a statement which you have confronted me with by saying, are you doing this now to protect me?
Yeah. You may remember that's what we started with.
Oh yes, I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm amused that you're asking me that when you can obviously, like, imagine that you can see I am just doing well enough to take care of me. I don't mind taking care of anybody else right now. And I'm mostly attentive to me now.
And how have you experienced I can take care of myself?
Oh, I have never have questioned that you can take
Did
care
you
of
hear
yourself.
again? And also, I hadn't finished my sentence yet.
Oh, you haven't?
You finished it for me. Now, I'm not, all right, now I think you're embarrassed. Okay. I don't think you've experienced that yet. You know, I've told you that. But each time, as a patient, that I hear and see you doing that, then I'll re-mention it, see. But I do not mean this punitively. What I want to find out is there more work to do? See? And I will know, I think, not just by what the patient has said. I will know that, well, Mila and I, perhaps 2 years from now, after 100 hours or so, we'll probably have to get back to this. I'm joking. But that's how I know when something is finished, or perhaps I'd better not pursue this at this time, but at the same time to remind you, so it makes connections with other times. Am I clear?
Mm-hmm.
Am I clear?
You are clear about that, I suppose.
She's quite artful, Herb.
Something about Gestalt therapy being a therapy of the obvious.
Any good therapy is. It doesn't seem so. Is there anything you want to say, Matt? Let me stall again. It is breathe.
That's why when I used to smoke, I breathe that way also.
I'll get it. I'll take care of myself. I couldn't hear what you said because I was
Before
talking.
that, what was your question? I forgot that part. I got myself off and
You were so busy
breathing.
protecting me, yes.
No.
I said, is there anything you want to say to me and us?
I want. I'm still not clear on what it is that stimulates my wanting to mother you,
Well, that was my word, you know.
protect you. And I'm not quite certain how we got off on the other things that I do, which are quite so. I'm aware I do that
Do you want me
on
to tell you?
occasions. Do I want which part? What it is about me
To
that
tell you
wants to-
how we got off.
Yes.
That's how you experience it, is how we got off. I led it off by following how you sounded, what I could hear and see you doing. That's how we got on to what would have been important. What we start with is your comment or question. Now that's the beginning. But that's true with most therapeutic interventions as they develop. If you stay with what they start, you're not going to get anywhere. That's not where the anxiety is. Now, it isn't that you weren't anxious, but this other is another kind of anxiety. That's where it would have to do with more than me. You immediately thought of her. I heard that. Now, do you see what I mean by... When you're practicing your craft well, you are not dealing with the problems presented. You're not ignoring them. But you start with them. And if you are staying with them, not that I say never, you're not getting to the contact-making disturbance. See, an observation like, well, and I didn't push it, you want to good mother me, I said. I didn't just say mother. Now that's close to an interpretation, isn't it? Okay. But because I wanted to give you some answer, not a lie, to that. And then I made the observation, I'm recalling now, about how you speak before I've actually finished my sentence. It's very so quick it could hardly be noticed. And that's where I see the disturbance of verbal and oral contact is, when something anxious is happening. Yeah. Have I been clear?
You have been clear.
Good.
Thank you.
What didn't you like about it?
My forgetting to have exhaled.
You what?
My forgetting to have exhaled.
You mean I made you hold your breath?
No,
Tell me how I made you hold your breath.
It's asinine to say that. You made me hold my breath.
Yeah.
That's a fact. I made me.
You know, there's something amongst Gestalt therapists. It's a new disease. It's what I call, you know how you're supposed to be responsible for everything. It's what I call premature responsibility, which is almost as bad as a premature ejaculation. You know, if the patient can actually be responsible, they don't need you anymore. And, you know, I've been in groups in which I've got a headache. No, I've given myself a headache. You know, it's like rote, or nobody does anything to them. They do it all to themselves. You know. Now, when you said thank you, I chose to let that pass. Because what I want to bring out is criticism, objections, anything further. The other is, this point, is of no relative therapeutic value. No patient has any reason to be grateful for you, in a way, making them anxious. And premature gratitude is a way of undoing it sometimes. Now quickly,
Undoing.
what therapeutic step might have been begun.
In other words, you're saying that I was prematurely thanking you.
Yes. I think, again, was it Otto Ronk? Really a great man. No patient can be genuinely grateful until the therapy is over. If patients are being grateful, watch out. Now, I'm not saying anytime, but they're picking up that you need it. And you might have to inform them in this way. What didn't you like? Or even though I might, that was pretty great work. You know, I was like, what did you? Yeah, why the fuck don't you appreciate it or whatever? I would hopefully be able to ignore it and go on. Because it's these, what we call final contact. That's the insight. If that is cut short with thank you, or some of these interventions, it wipes it out. You need time to assimilate or reject. I wonder if I might have a 10-minute break.
Sure.
Yeah. What? Oh, no. See, it's not part of my job to take care of you. I'd like to. Yeah. No, I've become so, I haven't noticed the camera.